they'll be automatically posted uh, to Teams actually.
Okay.
So, and then I think it also produces a website that has the links to them. So once I see those start to be produced, I'll put a link to that in Blackboard so that you can get access to them there.
Great. Thank you.
So I'm trying to do a few other settings just to get this correct. Um, okay, so 2284 is basically about doing .NET web development. So going to the syllabus, it you'll notice that it's kind of a little sparse on detail what I have here, and the reason for that is that I'm going to be teaching you the latest .NET web development tool, which is Blazor, and that's changed a lot. So I'm going to be creating this as we go, and I usually end up having to do a bit of that with this course because this area just changes a lot every year. Um, we're going to have to start out learning a little bit of fundamental HTML and JavaScript and CSS. How many people here have had some HTML, CSS, and JavaScript before? And I'm not seeing any chat. I'm assuming that people are answering. So there's something off with my machine. Hold on a second. It's hard to do this without feedback.
It's a handful. Most people are saying they've had some.
Cool. So I'll bring us through some fundamentals. We don't need a whole lot for Blazor, but we do need to understand how HTML works. One of the nice things about Blazor is that we'll be using C# to do programming on the front end. The front end normally is done with JavaScript. We do have a new course that is in development right now. That the first time it's being taught, uh, um, that is JavaScript and React. And I highly recommend taking that after this if you can, because between the two of those, you get you should have a very complete set of skills for web development. And that other course is CIS 1730, which is JavaScript development. And the prerequisite for that is C++1. All of you have had that, so that's an option for you to get. And the reason we did that is to try to do everything in this course, and there's just too much. I will give you will get the full development capability using C# in this course, and then that one has will allow us to teach React in more detail. So let's see, going to our learning modules.
Did he drop out?
I'm not sure if it's quiet. I don't know what happened.
I don't see him on the.
Okay, can everyone hear me and see my screen?
I can hear you and see your screen.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
me too.
So this is CIS 2284. The time will be 5:30 to 7 p.m. It's a real-time online course, which means that the normal expectation would be that you would attend during the class period. Then this is a lot of new material, and a lot of it is not super easy to understand just by reading documentation and figuring it out. There's a lot. For one thing, because it's changing a lot, sometimes you have to go down some rabbit holes to find out how to make things work. So I recommend attending in person so I can preferably answer a lot of questions all at once rather than having a lot of individual questions. We'll be using Teams to do most of our communication along with email. If you have a question, which is something that could help everyone, I'd like to encourage you to use Teams because possibly someone, feel free to answer. If you see a question that shows up, feel free to answer that question if you have the answer to it. I will get to it and answer it as well. But that way, the things that will probably be the common questions. If they're available there on Teams, maybe, we can help more people out at the same time with those questions, because we will all have those types of questions. I think the book they have out there is Pro C Sharp 7, or is that what they had on the website? So we'll be using this book along with some other sources depending on what we're looking at, and the Microsoft documentation. So this is about, you've learned C Sharp in 1280, and this is about using that to navigate a complex framework, in this case, .NET Web Development, using Blazor. And so this is where we're going to learn how to use that fundamental knowledge of object-oriented programming and inheritance and polymorphism in order to build something. And we're going to be building websites. One of the tasks I'll have you do is actually kind of build the start of a personal website or a professional website, where you would, the kind of thing that you might post to show what your programming skills are and use it as a resume type of thing. Also to show your future employers what you're capable of doing. So we're going to be building applications that have a web-based front end that use a database to hold information, and then provide the ability to CRUD data from that database in the front end application. And that's kind of basically, a rough description of the architecture of just about everything that's on the web that is fairly active. You can make static websites with just HTML, CSS. You can make things that do some a little bit more active with some JavaScript on the front end. But in order to maintain state and share information between different users, you need a piece on the server side with a database in order to hold information and make it available. Whether it's a commercial website or a government website, or some kind of commercial, some kind of internal website used by a corporation or a hospital or something, they all pretty much have that kind of structure. And if you think about what most people are doing, is they're getting information, they're making decisions, and then they're storing their decisions, and then other people are looking at those decisions, getting the information, and that's kind of the structure of what we're doing. So we're also going to try to do some pieces like send emails from the websites, do real-time chat type of applications with SignalR, and whatever else I can put in there to kind of give you a full kind of toolbox of things you can do with the web. We're also going to learn, how to make APIs, and the Blazor application, or the Blazor framework I want to use actually uses an API to hold the data, and you can actually use that for other applications too. So it's actually possible, if you take the Android class, if you know how to make an Android application, you could ping an API you made with using .NET and use the database to hold information that maybe the phone interacts with. So, let's say that you wanted to, I used to work as a chief of safety in the Air Force. We had made a little application to collect reporting information. But if I had some of these more up-to-date capabilities, it would have been really neat to make it so that a safety person could use
Yeah, audio just cut out.
Okay, got dropped off again. So, as I was saying, we can use, we can use what you learn here can also be broken up to pieces, and you can use pieces of it like building an API to provide a database backend to a phone application. When you add web functionality, there's a lot of neat capability. And in fact, if you even took the Internet of Things type of course, you could use an API and a backend piece of database to work with that as well. So you could use it to control your robot army and take over the world. So let's see. Attendance. In this format, I really don't have a great capability to take attendance because you can also view the recordings and use that as well. I'm just, we're kind of in this different world right now. I'm really going to rely on you to take control of your education experience. These are skills that you're going to use in a job, and I think our primary motivation at this stage usually is if you've made it all the way through here, is you want to get the skill to build these websites. So I don't think I have to motivate you to want to learn this stuff. And I'm going to just encourage you to attend as regularly as you can and in person so that we can, if you have questions, we can share those back and forth. The other thing too is I don't get as much feedback, especially today when I'm not seeing everyone's chat, as I do when I'm face to face. So I'm usually, when I'm teaching, I'm looking at everybody and trying to get a feel for, am I moving too fast? Am I moving too slow? So I'm really going to have to depend on everyone to, and I would prefer if we use microphones if you have them. Just speak up and say, hey, could you slow down, or ask a question, or, guide me to, where you need me to be, where I need to spend more time or where I need to spend less time. If I'm boring you, feel free to say, hey, I think everyone's got this, and we'll move a little faster. But, but at this stage, you're pretty competent at these courses. You've passed 1280. So I'm going to try to not go too slow and stuff. And so if you need to slow me down, please let me know. And then also if there's areas which you're interested in, ask me. If I can, and I can push the direction of this course to where you're interested, then I'll try to do that as much as I can. Withdrawal and drop policy, as usual, if you're going to drop this course, I recommend you go ahead and do it. If there's anything I can do to make it so you don't have to drop the course, please let me know. I want to try to keep you on track for your graduation and give you, this knowledge, as effectively as I can. So if we need to work something out, speak with me and we'll try to figure it out. Very simply, basically, we have programs and exercises, which will be about 80% of the grade, and then group project, which will be 20%. The group project basically will be to build an application. You're going to have quite a bit of leeway in deciding what you want to build. I'll put you in groups at a certain point in the course, and then you'll work together. I'm going to also teach you some agile software development skills and how to manage and plan a agile project, mostly so that when you go and work as a programmer, since every shop I've seen that's here in New Mexico and Albuquerque uses agile to some extent or some variety of it, the basic process on how you define user stories, create a backlog, identify what you're going to do for a sprint, which is usually about 2 weeks of development time, and then parcel out those tasks and complete them and turn things in, is going to be pretty much the same throughout, with some slight variations. So my goal there is to get you ready to work in a typical development shop, which is usually about 4 or 5 people. We don't have quizzes really in this, so the quizzes don't really apply. Late assignments, I may take up to 50% off of an assignment depending on how late it is. If you let me know why it's late, most likely I will accept your explanation. To do that, I'll ask you though to type that into your submission comments in Blackboard, and you can speak with me about them. But when I grade, I'm going to be looking at the Blackboard comments, and that's what will remind me. So you'll want to put them there. Most of our communication will be either through Teams or with email. If you have something that's you don't want the whole group to see, use email. But if it's something that could, if it's a question that other people might have, I encourage you to put it on Teams. That way, when I answer it, everyone will be able to see it. Let's see. You've seen the faculty feedback, emergency procedures. Well, we're all at home, so come up with your own emergency procedures and be safe. The electronic devices of class. Well, some of this stuff is a little different now that we're all remote. If you need help with your account, you can still call 224-HELP, and they will help, if you have to recover a password or anything of that nature. We also still have a Disability Resource Center and a Veteran Services Center. If you have a disability, please go to contact the Disability Resource Center. They will come up with a accommodation letter that you'll provide to me, and then that will help me make sure I accommodate your disability the best I can. And then veterans, we have our Veterans Service Center. And then, of course, we have our BIT advisor. Most of you are probably close to graduation, or you may be signed up for Capstone. If you're a programmer and in the Capstone, I will be your Capstone programming advisor. And so I will send out something on that when we get further along in the beginning of the semester. Okay, just switch computers. Hopefully this one works better. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, we just went over graduation and And then there's a schedule. There's a schedule in here. Note that we have Labor Day coming up. We won't have class during Labor Day. It'll pick back up on Wednesday, the 9th. So let's see. I'm not used to using this with just one screen. Okay. Do it this way. Nope. So does everyone have Visual Studio installed at this point? Visual Studio Community will be fine. Can you still hear me?
This is Steven. Everyone said yes. Looks like your chat is not updating.
Yeah, I think it's probably part of the, we have some storms coming up this way, so something's up. Okay, great. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move in and try to get some of this done. Let's move on to demonstrating how to use HTML. And so HTML, hypertext markup language, is basically the language of the internet. And HTML is really a text format. It wasn't originally meant to do all the fancy things we did today. So, because it's such an archaic thing, of course, we completely rewrote it and made it a much better thing from scratch. Actually, no. What we've done is we've patched HTML and added all kinds of things to it till it does all the amazing things it does today. But it's got a lot of idiosyncrasies and older things left in it. You'll find that when you're thinking and using the way you think when you're using HTML, it's going to be a little bit different than the way you're used to thinking when you're building, say, a web form or something of that nature. We kind of, if you've done XAML before, you'll notice that XAML is actually kind of inspired off of the way things are designed in HTML. But HTML, if you make just a straight up HTML page, you'll find that it looks like what web pages look like very, very early on. Very little styling. There's a little bit of things like being allowed to have different heading sizes, and but if you look at it, it would look like something from the 1980s or so as far as web pages are concerned. What makes us able to style HTML a lot better today is the use of something called cascading style sheets. And you can actually do all this type of styling that you can do with cascading style sheets with just by embedding style attributes into your HTML. But cascading style sheets allow us to organize the way we style things a lot better. And there are three ways we can style things with cascading style sheets. We can cascade things in line, which means that each element gets its style attributes associated with it. Or we can make an internal style sheet, which is basically in one place in the HTML, we can style it. And then we can create actual separate page style sheets that we just say our page is going to use this one. And what's nice about those separate page external style sheets is we can define the style of a site one time and then use it along multiple pages. One of the impacts of that is that we can also save load times, because rather than repeating the same styles multiple times throughout our entire site, we bring it down a single style sheet. It has all the styles in it, and from then on, we don't have to define that for every HTML page that's out there. So why do we need to learn HTML and CSS? Well, this is not going to be a full-up HTML CSS course. Some of you, if you've been in the web programming side, you probably have gotten a fair amount of HTML and CSS. But for those of you coming from the programming side, all we need is enough so that you understand basically how the HTML and CSS works. And then I would encourage you to go take the JavaScript course and get some HTML after this. So one of the key features of how HTML works and CSS works is that HTML pages, CSS pages, and also JavaScript are really just all text. The only thing going across the web are basically text documents, or really, streams of text elements. And therefore, but the browser, when it gets that text, renders it, and actually it's almost like the browser is it's almost like a compiler, or a just-in-time or real-time compiler. So what it's doing is it's bringing down all this text, it's looking at it. If it's HTML, it creates a structure of the document. If it's CSS, it'll style elements. If it's JavaScript, then it will actually start executing that JavaScript as code. But that JavaScript comes to it as text, and then the browser actually interprets that text as it gets it. So everything in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript on the front end of web development is text. So how do we use HTML? HTML uses something called a structure called XML, and we use XML to define these things called tags. So I'm going to W3 Schools. I like W3 Schools. It's well laid out. It's really more of a reference, though, not really a place that's super easy to learn this from bottom to top. But here's an example of a HTML document. At the top, we have the doc type tag. It just basically says that's what tells the browser that this page is going to be HTML. And then we have, you'll notice that we have opening and closing tags. The opening tags, in this case, this is the opening HTML tag, is just within angle braces, has the name of the tag. And then down here, you can see that there's a / and HTML. So this is the closing tag. And basically, this is a tree structure. This HTML here is the trunk of this tree. It's basically saying this is the whole HTML document here. Inside of it, we have a title and a body. This title will end up actually up here in your tab markers. And the body tag has what will show up. So W3 Schools allows you to create a document and then see what it looks like when it runs it. So we can see here in this title, this page title will actually show up above. In fact, if I changed it, we wouldn't see anything here. But down here, this body tag represents what we actually see in the body of the page. So here, if I said, this is an amazing heading, and run it, you can see that this H1, this tag says, make this a level 1 heading. If I made it an H2, now I get a second heading. It's less amazing because it's H2 rather than H1. And you can see that you could go from H1, H2, H3, all the way to H6 and make different size headings. Then the main part of our document is in paragraph tags. And what a paragraph tag does is basically it just puts carriage returns between the paragraphs. If you've worked with Microsoft Word, you've kind of seen some of this where you have paragraphs and then you can highlight things and make them H1s or H2s. It's very similar, except that, you know, we're going to write this as code rather than having a bunch of convenient features to do it for us. So again, it's a tree structure. HTML is the entire body. This is the head block here with a title element. And I guess it's not clear what this title element is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to open up Notepad++. Let's see. And I'm going to paste this into a text document, and then we'll save it. I'll just save it in a new folder on my desktop. I'll make an HTML demo, and I'll call this index.html. I just want to make sure I'm recording still. Yes. And so now this is just a text document. If I open up index.html, I can see right here, this is just an HTML document. I'm going to, oops, I want to open it up with Chrome. And here's my document as an actual web page. So we actually don't need a whole lot to do just straight up web development with HTML. And we may be doing a lot of stuff initially with just a text editor and seeing the web document show up just to kind of get used to using it. And then we'll get into using, I can't remember how my demos worked out for that, but we'll follow along with whatever. We can also create this directly in Visual Studio as well. And so then the question is, where did this show up? Well, if you notice up here in the tab, it says page, ZX, etc., title. This head block and the title element in the head block ends up as the name of the tab. And then the body is everything that shows up in this space here. Does that make sense? And then can someone confirm that you're still hearing me? I'm not getting the chat.
Yeah, we can hear
We
you.
can hear you.
Cool. So I'll ask if someone who's on microphone, if you see someone post a question and I don't see it, just echo it for me and that'll help me out. Okay, so that's the basic structure of an HTML document. In fact, let's take a 10-minute break. We'll reconvene at 6:30, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to log off and log back on and get this all and see if I can get connected a little better. So we're going to take a break and reconvene at 6:30. And if you want during that break, you can try. Let me see if I can copy this to the chat. Did that come through the chat?
Yes, that came through.
Cool. Yeah. So take a break till 6:30, and then if you want, take that, put it in a text document, and then you just have to. You can just double click on the document or open it up with Chrome if you don't want it to open up with whatever browser it defaults to, and play around with it, and then we'll continue on from there. All right, can everyone hear me? Can you see my screen? Right on. I'm also seeing your chat too. So, okay, much better. All right. We're going to go ahead and open up Visual Studio. I'm going to start from scratch so that we're all on the same page. So open up Visual Studio, and we're going to do the first demo, which is how to make a basic web page. And we'll make a new project, and I'm not going to go for a Blazor app right off the bat because there's a lot of stuff there. We're going to pick a web application. And let's pick ASP.NET Core Web Application just to start. And I'm just going to call this Hello Web. And I'm going to save, I'm going to put it in the default location, which is source and repos. And then I'll just hit create. So ASP.NET Core Web Application. And we'll pick an empty one to begin with. Which I think is where it defaults to, and just hit create. So this actual project is a little bit, has some stuff already in it. I'm going to see what it does. Um, So if you run this, it gives you a hello world, and it's actually doing that in this startup page. So right here, if you look at startup.cs, it .NET Core application, what it does is it has a startup. Well, first you have program.cs, which is where you normally start. You'll notice that you have main, which builds this host, which is actually going to be your server. And then it says use startup to start up this application. And initially, when you go to this web page, which says go to the root page here, it actually it just writes this text. You could actually write a whole web page in here. In fact, just to show you what that looks like, I could do this, take the page that we had before, and I think I could put it in here. We'll see. And it'll, yeah. So you could actually potentially write a whole web application just as a giant string builder. In here by passing to response.write async basically a string. Remember how I said that that basically a web application was just text? Well, that's really, this actually is going through the whole process of how in code, how what we just did, just using HTML works. And you create a server. The server basically gets a request, which in this case would be localhost 44396, which is just the web page. Normally, later on, if you deployed it, that would be your domain, like www.cnm.edu. And once it gets that, it says, what do I want to return? Well, in this case, it says, whenever you get the root URL, just return this piece of text. And since I wrote this piece of text as HTML, when it comes back out, it's basically the browser will process that as an HTML page. Does that make sense? So let me look something up quickly. This is why I say things change a lot, because my demo assumed that there'd be nothing in this empty project, and now the solution already has program and startup.cs in it, and so it's working a little differently. So I'm going to have to adapt. So up here, I'm going to type in app dot use static files. And here under Hello Web, I'm going to add a directory. And we're going to call this www.wwroot. And under www.root, we're going to add a new item. Which will be an HTML page.
Where did you click to add the directory?
Under the project Hello Web, right click there and add a new folder. And then just rename it to www.root. Let's see where they place these now. And then search for HTML, and we're going to add an HTML page. And we're going to call that in HTML page index.html. So what you'll have is you'll have an index.html under www.root, and then in your startup config, or your startup, let me add this in. So it's an index.html. And in startup.cs, you're going to, right above use routing, add use static files. I think this gives it, let me see, I may have to do some other things to get this to work. Nope, it's not going where I want it. Let's see. I'm going to comment out this piece here so it doesn't confuse me. let me try this out, and then I'll, once I've got it working. Wrong spot. Yeah, it doesn't like that either. Oh wait, we haven't put anything in here. Okay, that works. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, all right. I actually think I don't even need all this. Let me see if I can get away without it. Oh, it does need it. Okay. Let me try it again just to make sure. And if I have this back in. We're going to have a lot of this stuff being done automatically for us when we build an application from scratch, but I like to start off with at least trying to, yeah, that works. So in startup.cs, comment out to app use endpoints section. And actually, let me see if we, yeah, and then add this use static files element. I'm going to copy this and place it in the chat. Oh, and someone said that theirs is working. But what you can do is then once you have your index.html here under www root, you should be able to right click and view in browser and it should display your page. I don't have much in this page right now. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the code I had before and let's see, I don't need that. These. That's the HTML that you'll put in here, and which is what we developed before. And when we run this, if I go to index.html, I should see that page. Let me know if that works. We are commenting out this part that says use endpoints. I think originally it said hello world here. So this piece that says endpoints, we're just going to remove it for now because we're going to do our work in the more classical way of writing HTML documents initially. And so if everyone can kind of say, got it, or something like that in the chat, when you got that to work, then I'll proceed on.
It looks like a couple people are having issues, including me.
Let's see. And to get it to run, you're going to have, probably the easiest way is just right click on index and view in browser. Yes, you will need add using system IO. And by the way, if you're missing a using directive, one of the easier ways of doing it is I just removed that using directive. Just if you right click on it and look at quick actions and refactorings, there's a shortcut key too, by the way, of Control Plus. If you click on that, it'll give you an option that says, hey, I think you're missing system IO. If you click on that, it'll actually write it for you. I recommend that approach because then you're less likely to have spelling errors. And then to run it, right click on the index and view in browser. And that should that should open up, and so that's one way of. So is that working for everyone?
Mine still is not working.
Okay. You know what? Let's. I'll set this aside for now. Let's because I think with this additional stuff they have in here, it just kind of muddles things a little bit. Let's go with doing this with a text document. And I think actually that was where my demo was supposed to start anyway. So let's do it this way. Create a folder in your desktop and call it HTML demo. And then right click and inside of that folder and create a new text document. And just call it index.html. It'll give you a warning about file extensions, but that's okay. And then we'll edit that text document. And we're going to basically put in what we had before. So let me know when everyone's got a text document ready to write, and then we'll do this first step and we'll be done for today. Okay, so, and then just follow along with what I'm typing, exclamation point, doc type, HTML. So we have a doc type directive. And what I recommend when you're writing HTML is put in the, well, the doc type directive is just one tag, just like that. And then what we have is we have always a series of beginning and end tags. So the first thing is we're going to make an HTML tag and a closing HTML tag. The closing tag is always a /. And then what I do is I put the opening and closing tag and then I type between them. And I like to tab in to make it clear. So we'll make also a head tag and then immediately put in the closing tag. If you put the opening closings right away, it avoids forgetting to close a tag. And then we'll put in a title tag, HTML demo. And then we will put in a body tag, which is what the main part of the HTML ends up in. So that's our hello world. Once you do that, you should be able to go back to your directory, double click on this. And there's your code. Notice that where we have HTML demo shows up in the tag, and the hello world ends up here in the body of the HTML. So that's enough for tonight. That's the fundamentals of making a web page. Let me know if that worked for everybody. Yeah, a little simpler to do it this way. We'll mess around with the Visual Studio template later, but I think we'll do most of our stuff like this to understand HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and then we'll move into the Blazor template. The one thing to note here is basically this is just text. And when you send this across the web, that's how it comes across. So there are different header and things that are added to the HTML document that comes in. But fundamentally, this is what the browser gets, and the browser is actually interpreting this. And if you were to right-click on your browser, and you have this option to see View Page Source, you'll notice that if I view page source on this is the same as here. So you can right-click, view page source, and see the actual source of your document. And it's called source because, yeah, F12 and F12 actually does a little bit different. F12 will bring up your editor. We'll go over that too. But it gives you a lot more than just viewing page source. I usually use Chrome, so I'm hunting around in here. Yeah, there's our document actually in using F12, the editor functions. But if you view page source, it looks just like what you typed in. Now, what the browser's doing is actually reading this and interpreting it line by line as it's getting it, and rendering your document as it gets it. So as this comes across to the browser, it's taking this line by line and rendering it into the browser that the user sees. So we're going to see that's important later on, because when we put code in here with JavaScript, if you put it in front of everything or behind everything, it becomes important, because if things don't exist when the JavaScript executes, it'll say item not found. So so it's actually pretty primitive the way it kind of gets everything, reads it as it goes through it one time, and then executes it. So that's enough for tonight. What I'm going to recommend doing is we're going to continue on next time, and I have chapter 6 here in this book I reference, Beginning HTML and CSS, which links to our Safari account. You can peruse through that. You're probably not going to read 6 chapters of stuff in between now and then. I'll go over the HTML pieces we need, but I would just kind of skim through this and just mostly look at the layout, probably the introduction to HTML and what attributes are. Those, if you just read a little bit of chapter 1, I think that will be enough, and then we'll continue on and make an HTML page from scratch and continue this demo. This demo actually will walk us through kind of the basic structure of how a web page works, and we'll continue on from there. Are there any questions?
Do we have anything that we need to submit today, like in the learning module?
Let me see if I set it up that way. No, I don't think I set this course up that way. I think, yeah, so no, not for today.
Cool. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.